So I think we are still waiting on quite a few people, but with it being a rainy, kind of miserable day, at least in New England, where I know a lot of our participants are calling in from, maybe people decided to go and take a nap, which is kind of what I felt like doing all day. So why don't we go ahead and get started with a round of introductions while we wait for people to drift in. And I'll ask everyone to state your name and what all of us fishermen on the call are interested in knowing what fisheries you participate in, but we also have a special guest here from Energy Sage, Ben Soniga. Am I pronouncing that right? Great. And for him, it'll be important to know what state you're in and tell us if you already have solar panels, if you have looked into solar but faced some kind of barrier that has prevented you from moving forward, or if you're currently in the process of getting solar or are just here for general interest. That will help Ben know who his audience is. So I'll go ahead and start with myself. I'm Sarah Schumann. I fish in Point Judith, Rhode Island, and Bristol Bay, Alaska as a deckhand. I live in Rhode Island and got solar panels about 1.5 years ago, which power not only my home, but also my Chevy Bolt, my electric vehicle. Angela, you want to go next?
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Angela Sanfilippo. I'm the president of the Gloucester Fishermen's Wife and the executive director of the Massachusetts Fishermen Partnership. I'm in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and nice to see all these new faces.
Thank you, Angela. Dean, you want to go next?
Sure. Dean Passante. I am a fisherman in Rhode Island. We fish out of Point Judith, inshore gillnet boat. And yes, I do have a solar system that we just installed this summer.
Thanks, Dean. And Dean's going to tell us a little bit more about that experience after we finish our round of introductions. Richard Nelson.
Hi, I'm Richard Nelson from Friendship, Maine, retired lobster fisherman. I've got a rooftop solar, a portion of community solar. I've got heat pumps, EV, and a whole bunch of stuff. And enjoy it all, I guess.
Thanks, Richard. Rafaela.
Okay, I'm Rafaela Terzo, and I'm Angela personal assistant. I'm working for the Gloucester Fisherman Wife and the Massachusetts Fishermen Partnership. I have the solar panel on my roof, and actually it's doing very well. Actually, I save quite few money. I'm supposed to pay, I think, $250. And right now I'm paying $128. And actually the contract that I have permit me in my system to storage all the electricity, and I have credit with with the power company, National Grid. So it's good.
Thanks for sharing that, Rafaela. We're all interested in hearing more about your story, so we can come back to you when we come back to Dean and Richard to hear a little bit more about the ins and outs of what you opted for in your system and all that. Jason.
Hey, hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. Jason Jarvis, used to fish out of Point Judith. I now fish out of Westerly, Rhode Island. And I've been wanting to get solar on my house for 5 years and got the runaround from a bunch of charlatans, so to speak. So never really got a really good answer on how to do it and how to go about it, but definitely want to get it done. I mean, right now I heat my house with a wood stove for most of the winter. And I haven't seen Richard since an MREP program in York, Maine. Just had to put that out there. But definitely interested in this.
Thanks, Jason. And I see we have a very special and unexpected guest, Chris Schumann, who happens to be my father. It's not every day that your dad decides to video bomb your Zoom webinar, so this is kind of an unexpected surprise. Hi, Dad.
Hi,
Tell us who you are and what your interest is.
I'm Sarah's dad. We live in Washington, D.C., but we have a little summer home in Warren, Rhode Island. And with Sarah's great help, we had solar installed, I guess about a year ago. It's been fantastic. We have not paid a bill this year. In fact, we have close to $1,000 credit in our account already. It worked out wonderfully.
Welcome. Robin and Ted.
Hi, I'm Robin Alden. I'm retired right now, used to be with Maine Center for Coastal Fisheries, and before that, the state of Maine, and before that, Commercial Fisheries News. Ted and I have been thinking about solar for a long time, and this seemed, and we're thinking about it more seriously this fall, trying to figure out about lifespan and investment, and I'll let Ted speak for himself.
Oh, I think Robin's doing a fine job at it, but yeah, this is.
Give who you are.
I'm Ted Ames, a retired fisherman for a number of years now, researcher, and this whole idea of heat pumps and dealing constructively with climate change. So right up front, I think it's very important. So I think, Sarah, you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Sarah, can I just say hello to Robin and
Go for it.
Ed?
It was so nice to see you there, Angela.
It's unbelievable. I'm so happy to see you. So I just wanted to say hello.
I love how many old connections are being rekindled on this call. It's really nice to see old friends saying hello to each other after years. Jennifer Custer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Custer. I live in Westport, Washington on the coast, so way far away from you guys. My husband and I have a commercial fishing boat here. We fish for Dungeness crab, albacore tuna, and some halibut and groundfish. And I'm just interested to see what kind of options because we're so close to the coast, we don't get a lot of sun, a lot of fog. So I'd be interested to see what opportunities there are. I currently heat my house with radiant heat floor. So we have a radiant heat floor system with hot water going through the floor, but we use a propane because we don't have natural gas here either. So I use propane to heat that hot water. I'd be interested to see if that would be something we could look at. Thank you.
Thank you for joining and representing the West Coast, Jennifer. Greg Lisi. We're just going around and saying who we are, what fisheries we participate, what state we live in, and where we are on the going solar pathway. If we're just at the beginning, just curious, if we already have solar panels, or if we've attempted to get them in the past and faced some sort of barrier. So Greg, if you'd like to introduce yourself next. Greg, are you connected? We might need to come back to Greg. Mark, do you want to go next? Mark Jones?
Are they unmuted?
They're still on, they're on mute. So maybe I don't know if they're hearing me or not. We'll come back to them. Sifatia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Safathia Romeo Taken, Deputy Commissioner for the state of Massachusetts for Fish and Game. Proud owner previously of Ground Fisher It was a small dragger inshore, actually in state fleet, and proud member of the Gloucester Fishermen's Wives. I came on is because I've been on a lot of the BOEM's wind energy. And if we're hearing about wind energy going out into the ocean, what can we do about the energies at our home? There's so many pros and cons. I did, when I was mayor, I did the whole thing of get yourselves, Mass Electric had them come in my home, do the energy thing, had them do all these different things, and, said to them, we need to actually jump on. But there's been so many scams too with the solar. Okay, there's been a lot of scams. It says, well, you can't because you need a new roof. All right, so I get a new roof, and everything was supposed to be free, and then it wasn't, and then this was, and then they want this, and well, it's 20,000, 30,000. I have a lot of seniors that really need it, but really can't afford that. Oh, we'll include they'll tell them we'll include a new roof included with that, but then you have to pay so much, but don't, in the long run, you'll get the credit. Well, I live in the woods. It's like she said in Washington, we don't really have a lot of sun. My concern is like, what's going to happen? Does this, because we have a lot of snow, who's going to take the snow off? I have to take the snow off my roofs. Who's going to do that? Does it leave holes in the roof? No one will answer all these questions. And it's been like 6 years that it's been going around. And so I jumped on here. So actually to make sure that I get the right information to protect not only myself, but a lot of my seniors and consumers. And like I said, we're doing wind turbine in the ocean. And so we all need to go green, but we need to start from home. And I don't think I'll own a green car because my driveway is too steep. I'll never get up there, but I can put something on the roof. So I'm here to listen.
Thanks, Safatia. And that's why we have Ben here on the call. Ben is with Energy Sage, which is a neutral party made up of experts who can provide us the straight scoop when it comes to solar, because there is uncertainty out there around who you can trust, as a couple of you have already mentioned. So we're almost done with the introductions. I'll come back to Greg. Are you able to introduce yourself, Greg Lisi?
I can hear you.
Great. You want to tell us who you are and where you are in your solar journey?
Greg Lisi, Wakefield, Rhode Island. Been looking into it for a few years, and I agree with it seems like you can't get a real straight story as far as the pricing and the contract of the whole deal done soup to nuts. So that's what I'm here to try to get an idea of what is a fair deal of putting the solar on. And I think it's a good idea, but you want to make sure you're not getting the runaround.
Absolutely. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
Mark Jones. Want to introduce yourself, Mark? Mark, you're on mute.
It's on the top of the screen. Tell them.
Mine was at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
I had a hard time getting myself in.
Okay, we'll try coming back to. Well, I know that Mark is a fisherman in Point Judith. I can say that much. I don't know where he is on his solar journey, but maybe Greg or Dean, do you happen to know whether Mark is on a solar journey or is he just curious? Ooh. Oh, did he come off mute? No. Have you guys talked with Mark? We're all at the same dock, so.
I think he's right. Just been in on the whole circle of everyone on the dock talking about it, and like anyone, if you can lower your electric bill, I think it's, from what I understand, it's about a 7-year return when you start to come ahead. So it's like economically makes sense if that does pan out that way.
For sure. It looks like Mark may have a helper. But hopefully, Mark, we did a good enough job of introducing you for you. And what Greg sort of referred to is that we have a little phenomenon going on at Point Judith's TT dock where 3 of us have gone solar in the last 1.5 years, and we've got a few more thinking about it, which is one of the really cool things about solar is it sort of it's contagious. But we've got a couple more to introduce real quickly here. Tyson.
Hi there, it's good to see you again. I'm up here in Juneau, Alaska, actually out in North Douglas on an island in the Pacific, just part of Juneau. Gillnet, and certainly looking at solar as for all the kind of advantages it has for battery maintenance and power that way, but also here at my home, and also kind of double duty. I work for Representative Mary Peltola, who was just elected from the state. And as many of you know, Alaska's got some of the highest power costs anywhere in the world, and is extremely volatile. So even when we work, when I worked for her in the State House, we did a lot of work with a renewable energy grant fund and things like that, trying to get different renewable energy into places in rural Alaska, particularly Western and Northwest Alaska, where it's, you know, just incredibly expensive and tied to diesel. And every little community is their own electric utility all at the same time. So wondering about how much this has evolved to be a viable solution in places with you know, cloudy skies or variable amounts of light at different times of the year, as well as how it all ties into you know, federal subsidies and tax benefits, and how it's working and how it can be improved. And it's great. Thank you.
Great, thanks for being here, Tyson. And we have Chuck Shea, our last guest. Chuck, would you like to introduce yourself? Chuck, we don't hear you. I don't know if you hear us.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for
Hey,
putting
Chuck.
this together. I'm listening in from Charlestown, Rhode Island. I'm a farmer fisher. I haven't looked into solar at all, but I think I just got shocked into with the electric company recently that I should stop paying attention. So this is my first endeavor into checking solar out. My concerns with not a whole lot of research or background right now is, you know, what happens to panels at the end of their life term. You know, I don't really want to be adding to our world problems with, you know, these wastes that might be associated with panels and solar. So that's about it, you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Chuck, and welcome to all of you. And thank you so much for joining us today for a really important conversation. I'm going to hand it over to Ben now to introduce yourself, Ben, and then to decide how you'd like to run this. We obviously showed up with a lot of burning questions for you. So if you want to start with your presentation or start with, you know, hearing some of the stories from folks in the audience who have experience, I will leave that up to you. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Soniga, Partnership Manager with Energy Sage. We are the nation's leading solar marketplace, where folks can, in the background there, sign up to learn more about solar and receive free quotes from a vetted network of installers. I'll have a presentation to tell you a little bit more about Energy Sage, and I think I'll go through the presentation. There's some general solar info. It seems like we've got some real experts here, as well as some folks who are kind of starting the you know, exploratory phase. So I'll try to speed through those, since it seems like we've got some really good you know, experience when it comes to solar here on the call, and we'll just move to some questions in a conversation. But let everybody share their experiences. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me know if folks can see the slideshow, and I'm gonna go all the way back in my slides. Solar 101, can somebody give me a thumbs up if they see that? All right, so I just thought I would go through the solar sort of 101, the benefits, how it works very quickly here. A few folks have mentioned a lot of these reasons already, but when I think about going solar, some of the most benefits that come to mind are reducing, and in some cases even covering your entire electric bill. Saving money is kind of one of the biggest draws for folks. Secondarily, avoiding rising energy costs. I live in Boston, and we're expecting some pretty high utility bills this winter. Locking in the cost of your energy and avoiding the sort of volatility in the market is another benefit. It actually increases your property value. This is sometimes a question that people have. Zillow, who folks may be familiar with, they are also sort of like a marketplace, but for searching for housing, whether you're a renter or a buyer. They did a study on houses that are on their platform, looking at those that have solar on the roof and those that don't. And they found that it increases the property value about 4% of a home, which is not nothing when you consider the total value of a home. And that compared to the cost of an actual solar installation is actually pretty enormous. Of course, a few folks mentioned the environmental impact. We need to keep the planet clean, and so your solar system, the sort of average residential solar system, is about the equivalent of planting 100 trees annually. So pretty big carbon emissions impact is there well. And then last but certainly not least, you can help support local clean energy jobs.
Ben, can I interrupt you for just a second?
Sure.
I'm getting a chat message from at least one participant saying that you're coming through faint. You're okay on my end, but is there anything you can do on your audio to make it a little clearer for folks who might be having trouble?
I can speak up.
That helps.
Are more than a few people having trouble hearing me? If it's just one person, I could try switching away from headphones and just go for the computer, but usually the headphones are.
It's hard to see people because we have the screen share. So if anybody's if other folks are having trouble hearing Ben, could you just take yourself off mute and speak up? And
Yeah, it's a little muffled.
Why don't I try taking my headphones out?
That's worse.
yeah, that was worse.
Okay, can someone try speaking so I make sure I can hear you as well? Sarah, maybe?
You sounded a lot better just now, to me anyway.
That was great. Awesome. All right, we're gonna go with this.
Okay, great, thank you.
Awesome. So just trudging ahead here, solar suitability. I've had a few folks mentioned here that you kind of can or can't get a straight answer from some of the companies maybe that you've reached out to. Here are some of those things that companies are looking at, and we'll talk more about the sorts of companies, what you want to look for in a good solar company to get good quotes from. But you're going to get a good deal on solar if you pay a lot for electricity, generally over $100 a month, depending on where you live. Makes you a pretty good candidate for the financing for this to pencil out. That's one way that you can think about, if you're a good candidate for solar. You own your home. That's a good one, although we'll talk a little bit about community solar as well, which is an option if you do rent, or if you want to supplement, even if you own. Your roof, should be between 15 to 20 years old or less, good condition, largely unshaded. This is sometimes an issue, not slate or wood, and angles between 35 to 45 degrees. And then lastly, if you can take advantage of the solar incentives, the federal investment tax credit has now been bumped back up from 26 to 30%, and has been extended to battery storage, which is often paired with solar. That's good news. And there's also lots of varying state incentives. Of course, these are just some of the criteria. If you don't meet all 4 of these, or there's something in here that doesn't sound right to you for your particular situation, that doesn't necessarily discredit you. But this is kind of how you can think about the basic criteria for what might make a home or a business a good candidate for solar. Let's see, more about solar savings. Again, I kind of mentioned these two things here. The more you pay, the more you'll save. Consider the rebates. You want to consider how you're going to pay for it. Upfront cash purchase is not common, but some folks do that. Most often, folks now want to finance the system through a loan. That's more popular than leasing or doing what's called a power purchase agreement, because you can basically pay about the same monthly loan payment to ultimately own the system, and then over the course of time, actually, start making money off the system, which I think one person on the call might have mentioned here. So there's a kind of picture here of how that might pencil out. Say if you're paying almost $200 a month over the next 10 years, you're going to pay about this amount for electricity versus, $25,000, which is the average cost of a system. This is nationally, it varies by state, but minus the incentives, over time, you're paying about that much. Something you'll also hear a bit about is payback period. This just means the time that it'll take to break even on your investment. So say you go with the financing loan option, average payback period on that system or to recoup your cash purchase is about 8 to 10 years. Average system lifespan is about 25 to 30. So you get a good chunk of time there that you're actually reaping the benefit of, what can be like a net metering credit, which is a state. This is just a sort of infographic of all the steps that you need to take to ultimately have a solar system that's up and running. Would love to hear folks' experience with this that have solar on the call. Unfortunately, I don't have solar. I'd like to soon someday, but I have not even myself been necessarily through this process. I've seen it many times, but it's an 8-step process, really getting quotes and comparing through an installer. That's something you can do through Energy Sage. I'll tell you a little bit more about in a sec. There's the general site visit to draw up the official contract, sign the contract. That's followed by an engineering site visit to make sure that all the electrical is working. Then you need to submit the building permits and incentive applications. A lot of times the installer will help or take care of all of this. Then the actual ordering of the equipment, the installation, which takes a few days itself. And then finally, a visit from the local government and the utility to approve and to actually interconnect the system. This is all to say, if you are considering solar and you're thinking, perhaps I want to have this up and running by summer of 2023, make the most of those long summer days, never too early to get started. It's actually a relatively lengthy process between actually getting the quotes and having a system that is interconnected and approved and up and running. So that's a picture of how that looks. I think it was, well, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting names. I don't have everybody up on my screen. Somebody mentioned that they are also reaping the benefit of a community solar subscription. This is something that I just wanted to highlight the difference for that Energy Sage can also help with. We're talking mostly here about rooftop residential solar. This is, good for people that own their home, businesses. You can, have this also be ground mounted, but this is the sort of typical, going solar. Another model is where we are actually able to take advantage of, subscribing to a chunk of solar panels that a developer actually installs. You're able to save money and support solar by getting the credit for those chunk of panels applied to your utility bill. This is how that works. Just a sort of useful infographic. The solar farm produces energy off-site that's shared amongst participants, and you actually get a credit on your utility bill for the energy that's producing. And that's how basically those credits are discounted to you. That is ultimately how folks save, less money certainly than a solar on their roof. But on average, folks might save 10% over the course of the year, which could amount to, a couple $100. This is also a lot easier. You don't actually have to install anything, and it's free to sign up. So a little bit more about the Energy Sage experience. So to say a little bit more about us and what we do, the platform and the mission, we started about 10 years ago now through the Department of Energy with some seed money through the Sunshot Initiative. Born out of this idea, which I think a few people have mentioned so far, that going solar is confusing. It's not a purchase that folks make, more than maybe twice, more likely once if they do it all during a lifetime. And unfortunately, there are some sort of bad actors out there taking advantage of folks' lack of knowledge about, this emerging and popular technology. So there needs to be a source of truth where people can go that's transparent, it's simple, and presents them with. So that's our mission: simplicity, transparency, and choice. The first way we do that is through education. If you go to our site, and I'll send a few links around after as well, based on the questions that you folks might have, that I'll do my best to answer. And if I can, I'll be sure to follow up with some info. But we have thousands of infographics and articles and videos. If you check out our website, and I'll share links to it, it's a good place to start. We have FAQs. What questions should I be asking before I start shopping for solar? What products are there out there? What's the difference between here? You can see some of our solar panel reviews. Before even talking to the actual salespeople, this is a good place to sort of get yourself educated on Solar 101, what there is to know, so that you know what you're looking for by the time you're actually talking with an installer. We also have a solar calculator. So if you go to our website and click on solar calculator, you can just put in your address and a little bit of info about approximately how much you pay for electricity, and through Google Project Sunroof, which is looking at Google imaging, we can get a pretty instant estimate of, first of all, is your roof suitable for solar based on shading and the slope, and then what the economics of solar might look like for paying cash, taking a loan, or leasing. So this is what your potential savings would be in a situation here. Solar calculator is a great way to just figure out upfront, number one, am I even suitable? If not, maybe I'll check out community solar, but before I go forward with trying to contact an installer and bring them out to the house for a site visit, is this a suitable property for putting solar? And that you can find out instantly, like I said. So say you go to the solar calculator, you've done a little bit of reading on our website, and you decide, hey, this does seem like a good idea. I've got a suitable roof. The savings seem pretty good. And you want to actually get some quotes that you can compare from our vetted network of installers. You go specify your property location, your energy usage, and how you want to finance it, your system preferences. We then take that information and submit it to our network of vetted local installers. They're able to then submit custom quotes back to you, usually within about 24 hours. And then our team helps you compare those quotes in an apples to apples format. And this is what that looks like. This is just a hypothetical example. But on the left hand here, and I hope this isn't too tiny, I think a few folks might be on their phones. It's probably pretty small in that case. But this is what that looks like. As you can see, this is all of the information that you'll need to compare apples to apples. The price per watt, the percentage of your needs met, what the net investment might be, what the payback period is, more about the installer that quoted you, what type of equipment are they installing. All of this is available to you in addition to live decision-making support from our team. So rather than talking to the actual installer or the person who's trying to sell you on their particular product, talk to our team. We're a third party. We have experts dedicated to every person who signs up to get quotes. Even if you got a quote outside of the Energy Sage platform, you can just bring that to us and have our team help you understand more about the details of that quote. Having an expert who is trained up on the sort of minutia and the differences between, the price per watt, the incentives that are available, the type of equipment that you're being quoted, is something that folks usually find very, very valuable before actually going and contacting an installer. I've written no phone numbers required. That's because we don't want installers inundating folks. And that folks who have done any sort of request contract and work have probably experienced, and we don't want on our platform. We want the consumer to come first, and so that means making phone numbers optional. Couple last things. The National Renewable Energy Lab did a study on Energy Sage. We found that we save people on average about 20% on the cost of a solar installation. I know a couple of folks mentioned that they weren't sure about the price that they were being quoted when they reached out to some solar installers, and how do I know if I'm getting a good deal? Getting multiple quotes from vetted, reputable installers that know that they're competing on an open platform, make sure that you're coming well within that standard deviation of the average price, and in most cases falling under that. So 20% on is the average, no guarantee, but of course that's the sort of benefit of having a competitive open marketplace. Lastly, I've mentioned community solar a couple of times. Like if you're a renter, if you are, have a roof that's not suitable, beautiful trees in your yard, and you don't want to cut them down just for the sake of putting, solar on your rooftop. This is a good option for you. And the only thing you need to do here is type in your zip code, and you're able to see the different community solar projects that you might be available to subscribe to. Our energy advising team is available to help you understand that better as well, understand the difference between the projects, understand what is community solar and what comes next, should you subscribe. That's all for my presentation. I know there's a lot of me talking, and I'd love to hear folks. I know I didn't answer all of the questions that folks had right off the top, but there's my email. I know a few folks also mentioned that they represent different organizations, both across New England and across the country. Please reach out to me. Please shoot me an email. We are also interested in partnering and doing more with any and all stakeholders. So those of you that also represent other organizations, shoot me an email. And that's all for my presentation. I'll stop there. And if folks have questions that they mentioned at the top and I didn't answer them, please remind me, and I'll do my very best to answer. Otherwise, I think maybe we could hear a little bit more about folks' individual experiences.
I think it would be great to hear some folks' individual experiences. Ben, do you want to unshare your screen so we can see people's faces? So I think we have, in terms of people who have solar, we have Richard, Dean, and Rafaela, in addition to my dad, Chris, and I. But Dean, I know we'd talked about you sharing a little bit about your story. So would you like to tell us what you've learned?
Okay, so I guess I'll just start from the beginning and go through it step by step, how it worked for me. Yeah, I'd heard about it, I guess originally just a random email from somebody who was selling the solar, and I ended up being in contact with I guess she would be a general contractor, and they're called Solar Consulting Company. They're out of Mass. So she basically came and explained or checked out. First thing they do is they do a Google Earth analysis, I guess you'd call it, of your property to see how worthwhile it is, how much sun you get, and whether or not it's actually worth doing it. So they did that. And then if that works out, then this particular woman from Solar Consulting came and sat down and explained what I would need for my particular system. And she set everything up. You know, she did all the research as to what the right system was for me. And that's all based on what your usage is. They'll only build a system for residential that is big enough to cover what your usage was. And the way they do that is they take the past 3 years, and the year that you use the most, that's the one they use. So it's all about kilowatt hours. I've never knew so much about kilowatt hours as I do now. So they see how many kilowatt hours you use, and then they build the system to meet that need. So she took care of all of that part of it. She came up with the subcontractor who actually did the installation, and they were Bright Planet Solar. I guess they're one of the bigger companies, nationwide company. And that the installation part of it was excellent. Oh yeah, I needed a roof, so the roof was part of my project as well. And that the nice thing about that is the roof is also included in the solar project too. So you get that 30% tax credit on the roof as well as the solar project, which is kind of a bonus. So anyway, she set up the general contractor, who was Bright Planet Solar. They got right on it. Well, first the roof. She set up the roof contractor too. First the roof, that was done in 1 day. The solar installation, that was done in half a day. So I couldn't say anything bad about the installation part of, you know, the whole project. Oh, she also, I should mention, she sets up the financing part of it too. I financed it over the course of 15-year financing. So she does all of that too. She made the whole project very, very easy. So that was all good. The downside was it took a long, it was installed. I probably started speaking with her in April, May, June, probably May. And the installation was done beginning of June. So that all went really well. Then the actual hookup to get on grid or online with Rhode Island Energy, who used to be National Grid, that took 4 months. So that I wasn't real happy about that. Now, I don't know whose fault that is. I'm guessing it's National Grid or Rhode Island Energy. They're just overwhelmed or understaffed, or they weren't in any rush to get this online because I think they're losing money once they start having to pay people for solar. Anyway, that was a little frustrating. You know, I missed out on the best summer months for solar, but they did finally get it online in September. So yeah, as far as that part of it, that's how that went. Now I've had it for 2 months online, and so far so good. I mean, it seems to be working out. The first month, which was October, I think I would have had an electric bill of $350. I ended up paying $150, plus I got a check. Yeah, I guess I should also mention I chose the they call it a feed-in system where you have a couple different choices. There's the feed-in, and then there's the net. I don't know, Sarah could probably explain the other one.
Net metering.
Net meterings, that's what you have, Sarah, right? Yeah, maybe
That's
you
right.
could explain that. So the feed-in system, what I have, the way it works is whatever you produce gets sold to Rhode Island Energy. And actually the price per kilowatt you get paid is more than what they charge. So I'm getting paid 31 cents per kilowatt. And right now they're charging 17 cents per kilowatt for what you use, which was doubled recently, unfortunately. So anyway, the way it worked for me, the first month, I got credited $220 towards my electric bill. And then I got a check for $50. So there's always service charges and taxes. So you always get billed something. But bottom line, I guess it would have cost me $350. And I ended up with a $270 credit. And that was for the month of October, which isn't one of the greatest months as far as sunlight goes. And then this past month, I only paid $50 for my electric bill, and I got a $25 check. So I can only go by what I've seen in the past 2 months. But so far, so good. And I guess you have to average it over the course of a year to really get a good idea how it's going to work. Some months are better than others, but for the most part, the way it was sold to me and explained to me, you're going to end up with your electricity bill paid for, and then the extra money that you make and you're selling to the electric company will cover the cost of the installation. So that's the way it was told to me and how it's supposed to work. I guess I'll know in a year for sure if that's the way it turns out, but so far so good. So we'll see what happens with that. What else can I say here?
Let's see if anybody has any questions for, I would love to hear Rafaela's and Richard's story as well, but I think given the time, we should go straight to questions. And so if folks have questions either for Ben or for Dean about his experience, why don't you just raise your hands. You go down to the reaction button and click on it once, and you'll see a little box pop up with some emojis, and there's a raise hand button, and you click on that, and I will call on you in the order that you raise your hands.
I did want to say, Dean, I'm glad you're having a good experience. That's great. That's pretty typical on the interconnection taking a little bit longer. That's the one slide I had that mentioned that can sometimes be a lengthy process. Unfortunately, that kind of lands with the utility and the local government. You know, good to get out ahead of it now if you want to get those good summer months. And then to also the slide I had about payback period is what you were mentioning, the money you're saving. So the money that Dean's saving now, ultimately over time continues to pay off that system. Typically across the nation, that's 8 to 10 years, depending on the cost of the system and the incentives that you're getting back.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. We've got a couple questions popping up. Jennifer, would you like to ask your question?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Let me get my video. Let me get my video too. Maybe I missed it, but how long do the solar panels last? And then you'd have to replace them, or would you be replacing the whole system, or would it be pretty, would it be cheaper when you go to replace it, let's say in 20 years, if that's how long? And also, are you thinking that there's going to be more credit, federal dollars available down the road for assistance for this?
Yeah, two good questions. 25 to 30 years is the average lifetime of a system. I would very much guess that the cost of systems will come down over that period of time. The cost of solar has come down very drastically over the last 10 years, and the efficiency of the technology and the cost, continues to come down. So over the 30-year lifetime, by the time you're looking at replacing a system, certainly I would expect it to be cheaper. But that's of course a data-based guess. In terms of federal dollars, so the Inflation Reduction Act, which folks might have heard some about in the news, over the last 6 months or so, has, and it includes a 30% tax credit for solar that is in effect for 10 years. So you can take advantage of that credit anytime, now for the next 10 years. That is an enormous amount of stability compared to past years. So that's good news. In terms of more federal dollars coming down for stuff like this, it definitely depends on your state by state situation. There are some of that, those dollars are already sort of coming down to individual state efforts, but how that gets spent, and whether that's in block grants for helping low to moderate income folks recoup more of the cost, or get money up front for more solar, whether they want to use that for energy efficiency. There's a lot of different ways that that money is sort of being dispersed around the country now. The easiest flat answer is to say that now you can count on 30% of the system through a tax credit anytime. And
30% the year you put it in, or over a period of time?
Of the total cost of the system, the year you put it in. So then, next year on your taxes.
And then I guess one other thing, like down the road, a lot of areas may be looking at brownout. Well, some of them still in California, they definitely are, like brownouts, blackouts, rolling energy stuff. If you had the solar in place, would you be more secure in your power?
Yeah. Yep, that is a distinct benefit. So certainly, especially in the case of pairing it with battery storage, which is also becoming more and more popular now. In the event that you are, using the solar to power your own home, and especially if you're storing that power, through battery storage, you have a lot more resiliency as a household in the face of more, potentially brownouts, blackouts, severe weather events. There are stories of folks that have solar and storage in the Southeast during hurricane season who are able to keep the power on for, through 2-week blackouts. Those of course are, sort of individual situations, and none of that's necessarily like a one-for-one. Everybody's situation is ever so slightly different, but the short answer is 100% yes. Solar, especially when paired with that backup power storage, so that during the day when the sun's out, you can be powering up that battery for when you're going to need, appliances at night. You're creating more resiliency for your house and for the community as well when more people do it. Yeah.
So we have, we have Angela, and then we have Greg, and I think we'll need to cut it off after that. Those are the only two people with hands raised right now, just because it's almost 6. And Ben, are you okay with staying on a few more minutes?
Sure. Yeah.
To answer Angela and Greg's question? And then of course, anybody else, I'm sure you will have plenty of questions on your minds after this. You can always get in touch with Ben for an expert's view, or you can get in touch with me for a firsthand experience view, anything that Ben and I can do to help you in your solar journey. But we have a question from Angela next.
Very easy. I think he probably answered before. My question was going to be, do we get tax credit if for putting the system in? And yes, it's 30%.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Angela. Greg?
Yep. I was wondering if there's an idea of the breakdown between the cost of the materials and the cost of the installation. Is that 50-50 or what kind of?
Yeah, that's not something I have the answer to off the top of my head. I can certainly find a resource for you. That's yeah. I don't want to speculate because I don't know, but that's probably something that varies slightly by installer. I can certainly follow up with you on some answers around the average cost of equipment and how that's come and gone, and then yeah, I'll follow up with some resources. I don't want to take a stab at something that I don't have a straight answer on for you.
And are the tax rebates still available if you purchased and installed the system yourself? Or do you have to be a licensed installer?
No, that's a good question. I have not heard before, but I imagine you would still be eligible for the credit. So I have not heard that question before, but I definitely think that you should be available to, or you should qualify.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just, yeah, it's from speaking to a guy I knew that used to do solar stuff. He
Cool.
said that actually purchasing the equipment, if you were capable of doing it yourself, would be a huge savings.
Yeah.
As a fisherman, we're used to, you kind of do everything yourself to try to save money. And it seems like it's kind of a rather simple job if you have any kind of mechanical capabilities of installing the panels on the roof and going forward from there.
Yeah, a couple of good questions there. I'll be sure to follow up with you and get some answers. But yeah, I would imagine that you would qualify still for the credit.
I know that in Rhode Island, there's a class you have to take if you want to install your own panels, but I think it's just like a couple-hour webinar or something, and then you have to sign off saying you went to it. But definitely sounds doable and probably a good way to save a bundle of money, Greg.
Right.
Richard might have something else to say on this topic or another question. Richard.
Yeah, and on a couple of things there, that if you're on net metering or connected to the grid and there's a blackout, you're going to lose power. It's not, unless you have a closed system with the batteries and all that and disconnect from the grid, you're going to lose. So you need that battery system or something to have a closed system in order to not lose power. And another note is that, at least in Maine, there's two types of community solar or solar farms. One of them has that subscription. In other words, a company owns all that solar equipment, and you're signing up to buy a certain amount of power at a discount. Then there's a second form in which you actually buy a percentage of a solar farm. So that entails ownership, and it entails protection from price fluctuations and things like that. It's almost like comparable to perhaps buying a condo. You own it, yes, but you might have to pay a little bit for maintenance or some retrofitting down a few years down the road. But it's certainly a good way to go if you're worried about your house, whether your house is shaded and the roof thing, and whether you even want to deal with contractors. And so if you find a reputable company that's doing a solar farm, you can actually buy a biggest chunk as you need. And I did that after already having rooftop solar, because as Dean, somebody said that they project your use by the last 3 years. But part of doing all this is electrifying your whole household. So what happens sometimes is you end up, you say, well, I'm going to buy an EV, and that's going to be another 8 kilowatts of charging, or I'm gonna take out the oil furnace and put heat pumps in, or take out the whatever, and you go through these changes, and you might end up with more usage, more consumption actually than you started with, except you're still saving in the in the long run, because you're just switching things around and you're still getting the supply of energy without paying the going rates and things. So, and I've had this rooftop system for 3 years, and right off the bat, there was a problem with the inverter. I had to get a new one sent from California. I also had the problem with getting the power company to hook it in online for the first couple of months and things like that. But after those initial things, it's been smooth sailing and profitable for us to do both the rooftop and the community solar. And I think we're looking at, when you talk about 7 years or how many years payback, and then you think that in terms. And now I just read that the actual cost rates of electricity are going to go up 49% next year in Maine, and that's, you have to figure that's going to take that's going to affect all those figures. So it's going to make that payoff even a lot sooner and stuff, or as such. So. Certainly, I'd recommend it. And I did, along with that, I've got the heat pumps. I've installed heat pumps, heat pump dryer. I've got the car, heat pump, water heaters, and so you end up with a system of all these energy savings and electrified things that all can run off your solar. And only thing I don't have is the battery thing. So but that's a little more expensive, a little more consideration too. Yeah.
And if anyone knows Frank Merarkey in Situate, Mass, he's a fisherman, retired fisherman, who has solar panels and also has the battery storage. So he's a resource for us on going completely, becoming completely energy resilient. And I think we need to wrap it up here in terms of the dialogue, but I want to share a couple of resources for you as we part ways. I'm just going to put a website here in the chat, which is something that I developed. It's sort of a one-stop landing page where you can find testimonials from folks like Dean and Richard, who have gone solar, and I'm going to continue adding to that as more and more of us go solar. I want to capture your story and tell it, so that your fellow fishermen can learn from it, and also so that we can show the world how U.S. commercial fishermen are leading the way towards rooftop green energy. There's also a video on there featuring Dean, myself, and Frank Merarkey, who he actually shows his batteries in the video. And you can also find on that webpage a link to a special landing page that Ben developed through Energy Sage that's just for the commercial fishing fleet. It has the same resources that Energy Sage provides to everybody else who's a member of the public, but it's targeted just for us, so that we know we have a direct line to Ben and his colleagues anytime that any of us need it to help us along in our solar journey. And also, if you don't already have one of these very attractive bumper stickers telling the world to eat seafood and go solar, you can get one from me. You can even get a whole stack of them from me to hand out to your friends in the fishing industry. I think this is the beginning of a really exciting movement. I think fishermen are just the right kind of people to do this. As Greg said a minute ago, we're do-it-yourselfers. Richard was a pioneer, starting 3 years ago, and the rest of us are starting to fall like dominoes. So it's a great trend and a great movement. And thank you all for being part of it. And please don't hesitate to reach out anytime to Ben or myself and I'll post my email in the chat again. And hope you all have a really wonderful evening. Thank you.
Good to meet everybody.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, everyone, Sarah especially. Nice meeting all of you.
You too.
See ya. You can probably hear me now.
Yep, finally.
Hi, Mark.
Now it's over.
It wasn't as simple as unmuting it. I had to go fix them.
I know.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks. And thanks, Dean, for sharing your story with everyone.
Yeah, no problem. It was a lot of information in a short period of time. Anyway, if anybody had any questions, I'd be happy to answer if I can.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, everyone.
All right. Bye.